And with that immortal 8-bit chip tune, it is another episode of GI Joburg. My name is Steve. This is episode 279, and we are talking GI Joe jets. I, of course, am not alone. As always, we've got the deadliest pencils this side of the dark continent. It's Paul. Hello, Paulie.
Hey, everybody. Yeah,
And
what is it? Episode 279 with who?
279. Well, we've got a special guest waiting in the wings. But we'll get back to him a little bit later. Firstly, Paul, catch us up, man. You've just come out of another massive Rage Expo, South
Yeah,
Africa's
dude.
premier gaming lifestyle conventions bonanza. You survived. You made it to the finish line. How do you feel?
Pretty good. Pretty good. A little tired. You might hear a bit of a rasp in my voice, so I
I
apologize.
certainly do. Yeah.
Uh, it was a typical convention. Everything's just loud, and when you speak to people, you're speaking at 11. Uh, and
Sure, man.
I was, uh, and I was of
How's the
course there
sweat
with.
factor? Your pit's really clammy
Oof,
now.
dude, it was so hot. Oh, it was
Damn,
so
very
hot.
solid.
Like you know me, I can wear a leather jacket in like a heat wave in New York, and I didn't wear my jacket in the con because my word, it was
No
super hot.
ways.
It was crazy hot.
You'll never see Paul's legs, so shorts are verboten. But for him to have taken his jacket off, my word,
Oof.
you
Yeah,
know it's
man. But this show was pretty special for a few reasons. And I'm gonna get
hot.
into it quickly now. The reason I was there, of course, is I have this company called Gunpla SA that I started with another buddy of mine, and we sell Gundam and Gundam kits, and we're very big into Gundam kits, and I know a lot of you guys know that we are. And so that's why we were there. Also, it was special because this is the first Rage that we've had post COVID, and it was looking like Rage was pretty much dead and buried after COVID, and yeah, it rose from the ashes, so to speak, like the mythical phoenix. um, so it was in a new location. If it has traditionally always been in a place called the Dome, but that's now been bought over by a car company. So it was in a place called Gallagher Estate. So it was like kind of like a fresh like a fresh coat of paint on something that was, kind of a South African geek staple. And it was
Isn't the
good
floor
because
space a lot tighter at Gallagher Estate?
actually that's the one thing.
Mm.
So it wasn't because Gallagher Estate is quite like hectic. I mean, this is kind of boring radio, but they do actually make sure that all the stores are quite spaced out, and that was great. That really helped because if they didn't, I think we all would have died from like heat exhaustion or something. Because
Mm.
yeah, the show was packed. It was full of great stuff. It had a lot of cool toys actually, especially like Star Wars Black Series, both the 4-inch and 6-inch stuff, which was pretty great to see.
Any
Sadly, I don't
vehicles?
collect. No, sadly. But
Ah,
I did see Storm Shadow from the Snake Eyes movie in real. I've never seen that figure in front of me before. I was mildly
and I
tempted.
shudder to ask, man, because I'm pretty sure that thing was a peg warmer along with all the movie toys.
Oh, it was a peg warmer. I mean, but a part of me was tempted to buy it just for the novelty of buying it at the
It's
con, but
another
I
Storm
decided,
Shadow. Paul's got to have
yep,
it.
I gotta have it.
Hmm.
But I passed. I passed because I don't know. I didn't get that warm, fuzzy, exciting feeling in my heart, and I feel like as collectors we need to have that. You need to have that when you're buying toys and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're just feeding the machine. But there was something kind of crazy. Another thing that was kind of crazy. Well, two things, and this is the stuff I wanted to build up to. Is the first thing that is pretty amazing is I mentioned a few episodes back. I may have mentioned it on the podcast or in one of our little Berg after parties. But I am officially a an ambassador rather for a company called Cricut, and Cricut make a device that allow you to cut shapes and things like that. It's something that's often used by, let's say, scrapbook artists. Moms and stuff who make like fancy cards and things. But and you get like these label printers. It's like a very like kind of mom at home. That's how this product is often seen. But they want to put a new spin on it. And as a geek, and as a GI Joe fan, And as somebody who loves making stuff and crafting stuff, I've managed to convince Cricut to make me an ambassador, because thanks to guys like Mark van Leeuwen, and a special shout out to Mark van Leeuwen on this one. I used Mark van Leeuwen's Mark van Leeuwen and Ronald's most recent play motion to show off what I would like to do with the Cricut. One of the first things is to make backgrounds, like cardboard cutout style backgrounds and diorama scenes and things like that with the Cricut, which I feel the Cricut is ideal for. So I'm super excited about doing content like that for GI Joburg and for.
So is this an art tool, Paul?
Yes,
for
yeah. It's a craft tool. It's a craft tool.
Nice. Online, of course, but then you'd be able to print out your designs.
Yes, yeah. So this thing actually plots and cuts out designs. The other side of it is also really super helpful for customizing GI Joe stuff as well as model kit stuff, in the form of like cutting out cool stickers for like something that's quite crazy is that if I went and got myself a nice set of GI Joe stickers and whatever, and I didn't want to have too much overshoot on my stickers, I could like get the Cricut to cut them out very tightly, that kind of stuff. I can make some like vinyl decal shapes and whatever. So that's something that I can do as well. I don't want to give away too much of what I want to do with it, because I want to surprise folks over the next couple of months with what we do.
Hopefully it'll be something cool and Joe related, maybe a dio piece that you construct yourself. But did this all happen at Rage? Did you approach them and say, hey, I want to be an ambassador? And they were like, okay, show us some of your stuff. And you're like, here you go.
Well,
and
what happened?
Like, okay, get this guy.
It's kind of been
an action figure junkie.
It's been a long running story. So kind of what happened is with the formation of Gunpla SA and all that, it put us sort of on the radar, and they just kind of spoke to me about like its potential for like, the hobby scene. And then I showed them a few of GI Joburg's play motion videos in the very beginning, and they were like, "This is really exciting, and this is cool."
Really?
They've never considered.
Which ones did you show them?
I showed them Blazing Sand, well, of course, and I showed them Bad Luck Lady, and I showed them the International
Coiling
Backyard.
the Commander. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then most recently now I showed them Quelling the Commander, just to show them that stuff in practice. So because Bad Luck Lady, we also used some props. You made those really cool cardboard cutout props in the shot.
I did not. Those were Indiana Jones.
Oh, were they?
The 4-inch series that came out around about the same time as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They all came with artifacts in those little cardboard boxes, but they are great dio pieces. If you know, they're fun.
So this was something that's been happening over the last like couple of months, like I would say, let's say 6-7 months. I've also had the opportunity to do a lot of discussions on stage for Cricut. That have
Paul, public speaker, man.
Right.
But hang on. I'm gonna press you a little bit, because we do want to move the agenda along. You said 2 special things happened at Rage.
Yes.
You became an ambassador and you proposed. Hey, congratulations, Paul.
No, nothing that cool. But Steve, you know how that one time at Rage we played a dancing game? It was called Just Dance, and we like blew that place away. It was amazing. But the original...
Paul loves to play up this story. He's like, wow, man, a crowd started forming around us, like, and people got out their cameras, and it made the news. Nah, man, it was fun.
They did.
But
I can find the footage for you. They really did. And this is this is the joke. So hear this out, guys. So I'm at Rage. It's the first time it's been out. So they're playing a lot of video footage from the old days of Rage on all these screens. And what should appear on those screens? Stephen and Paul playing this freaking Just Dance game is being blurred out as like one of the things. So of course everybody's seeing me now, and they all recognize me, like as in I've seen you before. I've had that the whole weekend.
Paul, your 15 minutes of fame have come
and
gone.
To add to that, and
what's it like being a has-been?
No. And to add to that, they had DDR. Now, I don't know if anybody knows what DDR is. If you don't, I'm going to tell you. Dance Revolution. It's the original dancing game. It was released by Konami.
Those colored squares that you stomp on in time with the directions.
So you're looking at like circa 1997. Now, when I used to dance competitively and stuff like that, every time after dancing on Saturday, I would shoot off to a mall called Rosebank, which had one of the best arcades ever, and it had DDR there, and I used to jam it for hours. and I loved it. It was great. It was just, you know,
So there is a
and so they
correlation
had
between actual danceability and that stupid game.
it totally is, man,
I
because
always just figured
I
if you were a dancer, you had like maybe a little bit of extra flair when you were executing the
yes,
moves, but like honestly, it's really just stomping in time to the music and
right,
hitting the right pad at the right time.
which
That's
maybe
not
Steve,
dancing.
you and I take that a little bit for granted because we can do that well. You know,
No,
no,
have you
like
ever seen me on DDR? It's
I
embarrassing.
I
Danceability
haven't.
does not equate to being good at this fucking game.
I don't know.
Honestly, it
It gives you
stumped
a
me
bit of.
big time.
It's given me a bit of flair. I mean, I don't hold on to the poles or anything. Anyway, so I went to go and play that game. And it was there. They had one, and they had like, and there was a leaderboard and stuff. And yeah, so I was like on the top of the leaderboard, and it was like great and whatever. It's like, yeah, cool. And then I walked past, and I saw it dropped a little bit. It's like, hey, you know what, whatever. It's no worries. And I saw it drop down to 4, and I'm like, wow, 3 people in this place are better at DDR than I am. I'm like, okay, cool, no worries. So I kind of told Tex about it. I'm like, hey, dude, like you guys want to like I just did DDR and whatever's, and he's like, no, we should totally film that. That would be great social media stuff for gunplay. Say Tex is my friend who started Anime Works, and he runs a media
Cool.
company now.
I'll
So
pay
he's like,
good
okay,
money to
let's.
see that. But Paul, do you know the
No, no,
glow
no. I'm
stick
getting.
part?
I'm trying to get to that point.
Oh,
Yeah, when you ask me questions, you're doing it. So hold on. So I'm playing this game, and they come and they shoot some video because we think it was funny and whatever's. Turns out it's for a competition. And the first prize is like this loot box. So I'm like, okay, cool, whatever, loot box. Anyway, I'm just happy I got my name on the top. I get my name to the top of the score, and they like cut it off because they're like, okay, cool, that's the highest score that they've had now because I've actually beat my original score. And I do this competition thing, and it's cool. And they call us all up, and everybody's like, yay, whatever, you won. And there's like FIFA competitions and whatever. So I'm like up there, and they're like, cool. And the girl that comes third place, shame she got like headphones. And then the girl that came second place, she gets some really awesome headphones, and then they ask me, the guy comes first place, they're like, listen, you can choose 3 loot boxes or a set of these really amazing headphones. They're like $5,000. Okay, that's $380 or something, or $350. You can get these really cool headphones, or you can get what's in the mystery loot box. So I'm like, well, I got 2 pairs of great headphones. I'm going to take a chance on the loot box. So I open the loot box. And there's this whole spiel where they scan it in with the phone, and you hold the loot box thing in the up, and it's got a QR, and it creates this virtual space, and you're looking around to see what you've won. And guys, do you know what I won? From playing a lot of DDR and kicking ass, I won a PS5.
oh, fucking
I won a
sweet, dude.
PS5. Yeah, right? How freaking crazy is that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You didn't have one before, right?
I know
You
I
hadn't
do.
made the leap.
No, I do. I've had a PS5 since launch.
Oh. Oh,
But it was
well,
cool
then
to win
flip it,
one.
dude. Flip it
I
hard.
mean,
That's so cool.
right? That's freaking amazing. So, like, this raid has been
Wow.
pretty insane. Yeah. So, it's been
Paul,
a good one.
dude.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
that is a pretty cool prize. Honestly, like from cutting, typically just coming away with like some free t-shirts and maybe like a
some
bobblehead or
headphones.
a pop or
Or,
something.
yeah.
You hit the jackpot this year. My goodness, man. Well
Heck
done.
yeah, man. That was amazing. So, came home
So,
with 2
okay,
very big
for the
boxes.
people interested in the actual specifications, what release is this? I don't know anything about PS5, but I know that there are various tiers of hardware, and
Oh,
I
if
assume
anybody
it doesn't
knows.
accept a disc.
No, it does. It does. It's
Oh,
the
it
disc
does.
version.
Okay.
Yeah, which is the best
Hmm.
version. Yeah, it's a PS5. I mean, it's the sort of gold standard of PlayStation, so to speak. It's the current one that's out now. It's got a yeah, it's got the disk drive. It's pretty amazing. And yeah, I
How
won
big's
one.
the hard drive? Come on, man. Give us the tech specs.
I think this one's a 512. It's a 512 solid state hard drive. Oh no,
Hmm.
no, it's a 1 terabyte solid state hard drive. Yeah.
Very
And
nice. I just got
yeah.
a 1 terabyte solid state hard drive on my laptop, and the
Yes.
performance is remarkably better.
I
Touch
was
wood,
about
it
to
stays that
say,
way.
but
Hmm.
yeah, guys, so this has been an incredibly eventful rage in all the best ways that it could have been. And
Amazing.
it was pretty amazing. But you know what? Aside from Steven's amazing audio and video quality that I spotted earlier, so I'm so glad to hear your computer's fixed. We have got this really awesome dude sitting here in the wings, and he wants to jump into the show. And I
In the
think it's
wings.
in the wings. I used that phone on purpose. Oh.
He's dropping in by a parachute. For security reasons, we refer to him by his call sign. It's none other than Buttface69. who better to talk about jets than an aviator himself? Hello, Buttface.
Hey, how we doing, guys? Uh,
Amazing. Oh, I'm still
uh,
flying from Paul's recent bit of news. I take it
right? Isn't
you
that the
heard that?
coolest? Yeah, that's
That's
pretty
pretty
awesome, man.
rad.
Yeah, freaking rad.
Outstanding.
Congratulations, dude. That's awesome. I
Thank
cannot.
you.
Yeah, I'm not the dancing type, so I'm glad you are, my man.
Today on the podcast, we are talking GI Joe jets. So, Buttface, if you don't mind, what are your credentials in this aspect of our beloved toy line?
Well, my credentials would be. Do you mean for the Jets or for mine, my own as a human being?
A little bit of both. Why
All right.
are you the man to talk to when it comes to this topic specifically?
Well, I'd be the guy to talk to because I am a former naval aviator. Did that for about 3.5 years before I got hurt. Flew a little bit on the private sector for a while after I did some government contracting, worked in the aviation industry for a little while. Haven't been in it about 11, 12 years. But that said, I had an entire childhood around GI Joe. My younger brother and I played with it constantly. I played with my X30 and my XPF 14 so much that I don't think either of them had anything on that they came with. None of the little bombs or the winglets or any of
Tail
the
fins.
canards. Oh, all the tail fins
Yeah.
are gone. Yeah, all the stickers were like on backwards, and I think there was a killer whale sticker on my tiger rat. So, so that's just
Which is
how
kind
over
of
the moon.
prescient because they put they put whale stickers on the sticker sheet that came with like the 30th anniversary Sky Striker, in
They
case you
did.
wanted to, I suppose, make it up to be Shipwreck's ride because somehow
Which
he's
I
associated
totally
with the
did.
whale. You were the guy who did that, Paul.
I
Well,
totally did, man.
Buttface did it too. He was ahead of his time. Amazing.
But yeah, in that regard, I mean, I played with them constantly. I even had some of the little. I had a C-130 that was it was called the Hercules or the Army Man Hercules or something like that. But it was almost that GI Joe scale. That was one of my favorites as a kid. So I mean, my brother
Oh, I
and I,
must have missed that.
we played with that a lot. So that's my background with GI Joe and my background with aviation.
Could it fit a 3 3/4 inch figure? This C-130.
Kind of. Like if they were sitting down, they could go in the front of it, like the cockpit, and it just looked like,
Hmm.
as close as you sit in a 2x2 Cessna cockpit.
Tight. Look, I'm surprised I've never seen this in all my years of collecting the toys because it was the one thing that GI Joe oftentimes had in the comic books and never had in the plastic. Like you had all the vehicles, but nowhere to transport them around the world.
Yep.
Damn. Nope, nope. But let's do your GI Joburg identikit. I'd be very surprised if your favorite vehicles weren't jets, but let's find out. Your favorite Cobra vehicle, favorite Joe vehicle, favorite Cobra character or figure, favorite Joe character or figure. Let's have
Well,
it.
all right, my Joe vehicle is going to be the Sky Striker. As every guy in his 40s now, I started my love of aviation right around the time of the first GI Joe episodes and the very first when Top Gun first came out. So the F-14 was a huge deal to me, and still is. I mean, I have a family photo that we just took a couple years ago with my son and my wife right in front of the F-14 that they have at the Pima Air and Space Museum. So huge deal for me.
Ooh.
My favorite Cobra vehicle, that gets a little more complicated. It depends on the day. I mean, some days
As
it's
it
the Night
should.
Raven. The Night Raven's awesome. It's a cool black jet. Other days it is very much the His tank. I have good memories of the His tank just playing with that with my brother and my dad when I was a kid. So that one I've got the more emotional bond with, I think is the right term.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely. It's all about the nostalgia. I'm curious
oh
though,
no,
did you pop the turret off and fit figures into the cavity?
no, never did that.
Ah,
I was too
okay.
afraid I'd break it.
Good
My
point.
brother did it though. I think he did that a good amount because he loved taking the parts off and trying to see if he could put them on other planes or other vehicles and stuff.
Some parts do not click off so easily. Yeah. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Broken tabs abound, I'm sure. But
Well,
let's
that's the
talk
beauty of
figures.
having a younger brother. Is the younger brother is always going to be the one that does that. So as the older brother, I'm sitting there just watching
No
him, going,
fear.
"Oh God, don't break it!" And if he does, then I get to punch him. You know. So,
Oh, great. Awesome. Instant
but
cure for your OCD, just like raw
exactly,
aggression. Mm-hmm.
exactly. And then as far as figures, my favorite Cobra figure. I don't know about figure. A character's definitely the Baroness, just for reasons.
Mm.
And that was the one. That's there's a little bit
Did
of
you
butt
imprint
faces.
upon the Baroness, or was she someone you wanted to take orders from? Did you actually play as Baroness? Is what I'm
No,
trying to
no,
get
no. I
at.
actually never had the figure. I just whenever she was on the
Ah.
episodes, I was just kind of like, yeah, I like that. I don't know why, but I
Bad candy, as Cucho
I
might
feel
say.
you on there, dude. I feel you on
Cool.
that big time.
And then my favorite Joe figure was always Chuckles, just because I'm a big lover of Hawaiian shirts. As a kid, I would wear them like for picture days and stuff. My mom would get them for me, and then as I got older, I just kind of like gravitated towards it. When I was in college, I still had a Chuckles and a Gung Ho, like the Gung Ho and the Dress Blues. So I had those two
Okay.
just sitting on my desk in college. Whenever I was doing papers and stuff late at night, I would sit there and my roommates would come by and grab one of them, and they would do things with them. We'd mess around with them and stuff, and just that kind of tomfoolery that you get into in college. So
A Hawaiian shirt tucked into like cargo pants. It's an
oh
interesting
yeah,
look. Look, I always am quite derisive when the folks at Hasbro call GI Joe a fashion line, but it absolutely is.
oh
We
yeah,
weren't being sold a uniform group of like guys in army greens. I
no
mean, we
no
were
no,
initially, but like pretty soon it became like, which is the most striking looking action figure, and that's the one you gravitated towards.
oh
So
yeah.
absolutely, we were digging the fashion of our plastic. So you came up with an interesting way of organizing the various Cobra and GI Joe aircraft, both helicopters, prop-driven planes, and jets, and made tiers: a legendary tier on top, a good tier, followed by a decent tier, a meh tier, and finally a I'm calling the FAA tier. And you then slotted in each and every one of the vehicles into one of these tiers. There are some obvious choices. Obviously, the Sky Striker kicks us off as a legendary vehicle, but there are also some head scratches. And I wanted to go through your process on this. I mean,
All right.
firstly, what possessed you to put together such a? I mean, is this something that like you had to do? Like your OCD couldn't handle it anymore. You needed to make sense of these crazy, wacky things.
No, it's my brother and I were talking about it over the Thanksgiving holiday, just like our favorite stuff from GI Joe when we were kids. Because we have a pretty good memory of a Thanksgiving. I think it was in 1990, where we were playing with GI Joes in the living room, and one of them got chucked pretty far. Pretty far. It was a oh god, what was that one? It was a Fang, the original Fang. And my brother threw it to see if it would fly because we had the glider too, and the glider flew. So in his like 6-year-old brain, this should fly too. So he chucked it, and it ended up breaking, and we ended up putting it together and reassembling it and all that. And I think that's where he figured out, oh hey, these parts come out now. I can put things on different things. So because of that memory, he was like, oh man, we started talking about him like all of our favorites as a kid because I loved the Sky Striker, but he was more of a Conquest guy. He thought the Conquest was the best, and I don't blame him for it because the forward sweep wings always look cool.
The
But
eternal debate.
oh yeah, and it's a heck of a one. But I mean, he ended up when he grew up, he became a crew chief on helicopters in the Marine Corps in the CH-53. So he always had an affiliation with the Tomahawk, which that's my favorite
Mm.
helicopter too. So like if you could tell me I could fly one in real life, I'd go learn how to fly helicopters just for the Tomahawk.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about that first tier then. You've just name dropped the Tomahawk. That is also in the legendary category. No surprise that the Cobra entry is the Night Raven. Now, tell me, like, there are some design quirks to the Night Raven, which, I mean, was there any reason why they went with squared off, like, engine intakes? I mean, is there any precedent for that? It's certainly not stealthy.
Well, my guess is it'd be a manufacturing thing. That's just the engineer in the back of my head that would be like, it's easier to make things with squared off parts, especially if you're building molds and stuff and trying to keep them sturdy. But
Uh-huh.
the reason they'd go that way, I mean, if you look at the original F-117, that thing is all, the original stealth fighter, that thing is all sharp angles. So the thing, I think the Night Raven is older than the F-117 being known to the public. because I think that's right around that time period where it kind of looks like something. Let's see if I can find it real quick. The original.
Now, I mean, in terms of the Night Raven's lineage, I mean, we all see the SR-71 in that, so that predates the F-117 by decades.
Yes. So yeah, there's that in it, but I mean, I think too, it's just the 80s. Everything was super sharp and angular. Even the cars. Look at the MR2, the Pontiac Firebird. All those curves started going away, and everything started becoming sharp angles. So I think that might be part of that design language.
And yet, I've always been puzzled at the nose of the Night Raven, having a kind of a duck's bill almost.
That is weird. I agree with that.
Strange.
Yeah.
That
is an odd choice.
Hey, it's still gorgeous. I mean, I recently took mine down off the shelf and gave it a good dusting. And hey, man, that's one hell of a plane. It's so long. It's so self-important. And black and red are two incredible colors together.
I agree with Paul. It is a very regal design. You know, I never even had one as a kid. I had a kid that lived upstairs from us in military housing. My dad was, in the military as well when I was growing up. And he, the kid upstairs, he had the Night Raven, and we had a Sky Striker and X-30. So we would have lots and lots of dogfights all around the back area of the neighborhood that we were living in Maine. It was back when there was a place called Winter Harbor, or it was a Navy communications base. But we would go around and we'd play out there with them. So I'd never had one, but I knew how long they were. And then my brother got what was it called? The Sky Patrol one, the one that was like all chromed out.
Oh yeah, that was my first introduction to this mold too.
Yeah, and it was just, I remember, like, even though I was a little outside of the age group at that point, like I'm getting into the teen years, and he got a hold of that. I still remember thinking how freaking cool that was. It's just like, this thing is so awesome. And then the little thing at the bottom where the guys come in and out, where it drops down. It's like something out of like a starfighter, not even like an actual jet. It was so cool.
For the longest time, bemoaned it having that drop-down cockpit. I mean, it's a neat idea, and it's certainly something that like early designs of the HISS tank wanted to integrate. But I almost prefer. I wish it had a hinged cockpit at the top, because I don't know. It's wonky as hell for one thing, and on these aging Night Ravens and Sky Ravens, it's always kind of in danger of dropping away at any moment. Like, you thought you weren't going to have paratroopers? Well, guess what? Meat bombs, here we go. Bombs away.
Well, that's the side of this that I come from, is that when I got my Night Raven, on the pictures, the seller didn't list that it was broken. So on the pictures, it looked like it was totally fine. And I mean, I think this was the second, or I think this possibly the third vehicle I ever bought on eBay for myself. And so when I got it, it was taped to the bottom. The bottom was taped, and that was so disappointing, but at the same time exciting that it could do that. I was like, yeah, this is really amazing, and it didn't put me off it. You would think having the feature that's broken just right off the bat with your first experience with this vehicle would put you off it. And once I got a replacement piece and did it up, I still love it. I still think it's one of the coolest things on any GI Joe vehicle, is how a pilot is loaded into this vehicle. So I'm a big fan of that. At least
in your estimation, Gutface, is this the quickest jet under consideration?
It's got to be one of the top two. If that's not the fastest, then I guess the shuttle would be faster. The Crusader, isn't that what it's called?
Right.
Because you got to get into orbit with that thing. But the only thing I could see maybe challenging it would be the X-19. Is that the one? Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Phantom. Nice. What about the Phantom just screams speed? That sort of teardrop, the 80s idea of what stealth in the future could be.
I think it's that, and just the fact, I think I remember reading the word scramjet on it. So whenever I hear scramjet, I'm like, oh, okay, that thing can haul.
Is that what Tom Cruise is testing out in Top Gun Maverick?
I believe so. I do think
scramjet. Okay, and for us complete noobs, what is scramjet and why?
I was about to ask that question.
All right, so like kind of the most basic way to put it is voodoo. It is airplane voodoo to go really, really fast with a jet by putting as much highly compressed, highly volumed air into a very fast intake to just completely reignite. Because the ramjets with the SR-71 had, where the idea is it's pushing in this air, keeping the minimum amount of moving parts while still pushing it through the turbine and getting all that speed, and then just lighting all this fuel afterward, just to, into afterburner, just to bang it on through. And a scramjet is taking that, putting it on steroids, and giving just a little smattering of LSD, PCP, and crack cocaine, probably.
Delicious.
Breakfast
Let's
of
pull up
champions.
our tier again. Now we have the Cobra Liquidator as our fourth and final legendary aircraft. Amazing. Why the Liquidator? I suppose you're a fan of Swedish jets.
Yeah, the Draken. That's absolutely a big part of it. I think the Draken's just a cool looking jet, and it's one of those things that whenever I see it, I'm like, listen, I've read tons of stuff written by the guys who flew them, and like, oh yeah, this thing kind of sucks, but it was neat looking and it was fun to fly, and God knows what it was supposed to do in the event of an actual conflict, because we don't know what it would have actually been able to do. But that said, it just looks so cool, and it has a little
Come
water
on,
gun
you gotta
function.
elucidate on that. Why was it so questionable?
I mean, there's issues with the design of it. It didn't like low speed. It didn't really like high speed. It had some problems in what's the best way to put this? If you were trying to take it inverted and then going up and over so you have an egg, the tactical egg. If you look at how an airplane naturally wants to pull a loop-de-loop, it actually looks like an egg, not a circle. So the Draken, as it hits that top of the loop, really has a lot of trouble with that and wants to just drop that nose. But at the same time, because of the way the fins are, or not the fins, but the intakes are, supposedly they had a lot of issues with how they would take in air at that point at the turn. They didn't like high G's very much. This is all me just regurgitating things I've been told from other people. This could just be completely wrong. It could have been some guy messing with me on the internet, which good on him. If that's what he did, that's good. But no, there's all sorts of things I've read about the Draken and the guys who flew it, saying that they love the plane, but at the same time they're like, man, this thing is kind of a piece. But I just love the look of it as a Cobra vehicle. Something about it just says, like, this isn't something that a person of their right mind came up with, like Destro was definitely doing lines off the Baroness that night, and then somebody drew that one up, and that thing looked cool, and he's like, that's what we're doing. And
I don't know, man. Like, to me, it looks like as conventional a Cobra jet as you're likely to get. I mean,
in a way,
to
yeah.
put the once again the uninitiated into the frame, like, this is a Swedish jet from the 1950s, right?
Yep.
That's its heritage, and it was premised on the Cold War notion that if airfields get bombed out, these things can operate off highways.
Yeah, a lot of them were built at that time. I mean, you weren't quite as sensitive about what's going into the intake and stuff. Earlier jet engines weren't quite as well designed in the terms of just how much efficiency was needed to keep it going. So you could have it suck through a little bit of a rock or two, or a small bird, and it's not the end of the world, but it becomes a bigger problem in more advanced jets like turbofans and stuff start having some really interesting issues on smaller jets. But now with the Liquidator too, the other thing I really like is, does anybody remember that very first episode of GI Joe, and that the airfield's getting attacked and it's all the Sky Strikers and stuff getting fucked up?
Cobra
in my mind,
back.
Yeah, the plane you never got a version of. So to me, that was what the Liquidator was. It was that very first jet we saw, and then they were like, oh yeah, we should make a toy of this, like 15 years later.
People are going to start telling us that we're driving the price high on this thing, because you're making this plane way cooler than it is.
It is
you're making
cool.
This toy cooler than it is.
and it's got the little water cannon, which this is, personal story coming into this one is I like that one because we had that one. My brother had gotten it, and I was like, screw it, because I had a little bit of cash on me, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to get the GI Joe version, which is built off the F-23, which we'll get to later because it's the next tier down. And my little brother and I were playing with it, and then I hit the natural end of that cycle. Like, all right, cool, your friend can borrow mine. You guys can go play in the yard with it. Oh, Steve, you got one. Oh, I'm jealous.
Dude,
it looks so good too.
I got it in Hong Kong, still mint in box.
Oh,
unbelievable.
Oh, that is so pretty. But that's the thing, is then my brother filled his up with pee because his friend was mad, and he sprayed him with it.
What a dick. Oh my word.
And I was so proud of him for that, 'cause I thought that one friend of his was always kind of annoying. So that was my brother's way of getting back. I was like, oh yeah, I just peed in it. It's awesome.
Amazing. But then, I mean, if you get shot by it, like jokes been turned around back on you, man. But yeah, look, it's terrific, and the fact that the handle, while red, folds away and doesn't really interrupt the fuselage at all. Like, I love these things as well. They're perfect party-sized jets.
Exactly.
I mean, the guy kind of is reclining to the extreme, but hey, these are disposable, I suppose, just swarming fighters. They just, by weight of numbers, they will overwhelm an enemy.
Well, and
Perfect
that's
Cobra doctrine right there.
exactly, and that's the thing you never remember with Cobra is all their fighters and stuff were either really, really big and super fast, so you knew they had to be expensive. They weren't going to use a lot of them, or it was something like the Rattler, which is more an A10. That's not much of a fighter. So in my brain that never said speed. So it was nice to have
No.
something that would fit that mold in my mind.
Curious though, it does have this Cobra sticker, which is not the Cobra Air Force sticker. It doesn't have the bat wings. Instead, it has a crown. Is that a little nod to the Kingdom of Sweden, or is that this is supposed to be intended for VIPs? And to that point, the card art or the box art does have Cobra Commander on it. What do you say about that, Buttface?
I don't know. That's just call it the King Cobra, I guess. I don't know, man.
Nice. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, yeah, it'd be cool. Like, I always have a problem putting serious named characters into like frontline equipment. Like
Oh
Cobra
yeah.
Commander riding the Liquidator, that feels like a problem. Um, I mean, I wouldn't trust him necessarily,
Yeah, I mean,
especially
it
with
looks
that
cool.
hood.
Maybe he just woke up that morning, looked at it, and was just like, "No, I want to fly one." And like, "Sir, stop!" And he's like, "Nope, want to fly it."
Outstanding. Well, yeah,
Rank has to
no.
have some privilege, right?
There you go, man. Fly it whenever the hell you want. You paid for it, sir. Ah, excellent. All right, let's look again at our next tier. This is the good tier, and it's one of the most numerous. Do you want to take us through them, like sort of rapid fire, or do you want to pick
Sure.
out certain ones and maybe give us a bit more meat to the bones? I mean, we kick off with a major one. Like, this will upset people that it's not a legendary craft, but the Rattler.
hmm I mean, the Rattler's a great plane. It's cool. It's in so many different episodes and so many different comics, and it's honestly, if my experiences with the toy itself were a little better, I think it probably would have made it a legendary. But I knew two kids that had it growing up, and both of them, every time you try to get the wings to go upward and go to VTOL mode or vertical takeoff or landing, when you go to do that, every time it make a weird noise and it feel like it was about to break. And one time it did, and it started a big fight on the playground. So that kind of sullied the Rattler in my mind from that point on. But that said, I mean, it's still
Say
so
nothing
cool.
about the landing gear. Eesh.
Oh yeah, I've never had that problem, but I have heard that problem, So that's just where my mind is at with it. I had a Tiger Rat as a kid. That was the Tiger Force version, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I had that one, and I always thought that thing was really cool. But at the same time, at that point, I had the Sky Striker and I had the X30, and they were both cooler. So it never
Mm.
quite ranked as high. Plus, more often than not, when I would play with my brother and I were playing with our GI Joes, whenever a plane needed to get stolen from a Cobra base, it was always a Rattler, and it would always get shot down in the first 10 seconds it was stolen. So,
Well, handy that it has a sort of a capacity for a passenger, because that gunning position, I mean, it's a nice nod to maybe a play pattern that would be more of a World War II style bomber battle, formation of bombers trying to shoot down an interceptor craft. But like in the real, having some pathetic little pew pew guns sticking out of the top of your jet, pretty useless. Next to useless. I mean, on the one hand you're shooting the pilot, on the other hand you're shooting your rear engine.
exactly.
Yeah, it's such a weird feature because as the toy, it's really cool. Like you're like, yeah, this is a really fun thing, as you mentioned. But then also as a toy, it also has flaws. Like as a kid, you'd be like, you would also like recognize that, even with multiple layers of disbelief. But somehow a Rattler is not a Rattler without it, at least in my opinion.
I agree.
Yep. Yeah.
It's just part of the joy of it. I mean, you have to take the flaw with it. It was God, was that the the Chinese thing where anything that's broken they mend it again with gold or whatever? Or is that Japanese?
Oh,
Am I offending people?
Japanese
Hans,
art
yell
of
at me if I'm.
kintsugi.
Yeah, there we go. All right, see if
Yeah.
like Hans Chow, please don't yell at me. But no, and that whole thing, it's you've got to appreciate those flaws, and that makes it what it is. It adds to the beauty of it. So, I mean, the bombs on that thing are just the coolest, though. That was
I have
always
a
my
question
favorite
about the
part.
wing loading, though. I don't know
Mhm.
how familiar you are with the A10, but like with the Rattler, the instructions and blueprints and whatnot all indicate that the frame that holds the 3 medium-sized bombs are
Mhm.
on the outermost points of the wings.
Mhm.
Isn't that like the stress testing on those wings? Like, wouldn't it make more sense for the air-to-ground missiles to be on the furthest points?
Yeah, you want the lightest stuff the furthest out, more often than
Yeah.
not. It's just and what Steve's bringing up to it is when you're hitting up on like a high G situation. I should have like a little jet with me. 1 second while I pop
You
this.
got your A10 right behind. No, A6. What's that? Skyhawk. Sky.
An
I
A4.
see.
There you go. All right.
A4. Sorry. I don't
Sorry.
actually know shit, guys. I'm a massive faker.
So on the A4, the Skyhawk, in real life, let me pop it off the stick.
The rod. Sorry,
This is
podcast listeners, you're not going to get the benefit of this demonstration.
So on
He's
the
holding a
edges here,
model jet in his hands.
and I'm pointing at the
I've seen this
wingtip
in Top
furthest away
Gun.
from the fuselage. Yeah, this is the same jet flown in the Top Gun by Viper and Jester. So anyway, for these, as you get towards the outside of the wing, as you're pulling G's, especially into a positive turn. So as I'm coming across, so I've got my forward axis as I'm coming across that, and I'm hitting the airflow, and the G's are laying onto it. Anything at the edges of it, especially the weaker part of the wing, is going to bend that wing. So you have to fly it a little differently. So if you're flying a jet and you're just loaded down with bombs, it flies completely different than when it's completely slick and it's light and it wants to move. So we'll say here the A4 is the example. If it's slick like this, I'm just going to be able to go ahead and turn around and do all the cool maneuvers you see in Top Gun, because even though it's a little attack jet, it has a super good thrust to weight ratio, and it's small with a good sized motor, and this thing's going to scoot. In fact, the nickname for the A4 was the scooter. That was what the pilots called it. The Skyhawk was what the people selling it called. It's like the F-16. They call it the Fighting Falcon, but I've never met a pilot who doesn't call it the Viper. Everybody's like, oh no, it's the Viper. So it's one of those. But anyway, what Steve's bringing up is if you had all those weapons at the wingtips, you'd be shearing off your wings in hard turns. Like you'd make a hard move on that stick, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm over here, but my wing's way over there. That's not good. So that's what he's talking about. So all that extra weight is not good. I mean, you can even, if you pick up a bucket in one hand that's full of water, and you just try to pick it up and down with your arm fully extended, and then if you get a little closer, it's easier to move. So it's that kind of mentality.
So, looking back at the configuration of bombs, how would you order it?
I would, yeah, I do what you're saying. I would take those 2 air-to-air missiles, put them out to the outside. The racks of 3 would probably go. I'm not sure how heavy those things in the middle are. I think it's supposed to be a cluster bomb and a guided weapon, so you probably don't want those on something that's going to be rotating like the outer wing. So probably just swap the bombs with the AA missiles and just go from there.
For the longest time, that's exactly what I did. But then I started seeing the paraphernalia and realized I was doing it wrong. And now I'm in 2 minds. Now I'm like, crap.
Whatever looks cooler. It's GI Joe. That's the whole point.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Do I
rule of
make it
cool
look
is
like
always
the
an
box art,
application.
or do I make it look like it should in my head? And these two thoughts are always at war with one another. All right, man. We've gotten past the upset. Let's talk about the Vector.
Just
Is it
cool.
the Vector?
That is the
Yeah.
Vector. It's just,
Okay.
I had that one as a kid. I always thought it was neat, honestly.
Nice.
And I was just one of those where it's extremely swooshable. When you hold it in your hand and you're playing with it, it feels like you're just moving like swoosh, like it's got that perfect, that feel, that look and feel that you want when you're a kid, when you're 7 years old and just sprinting through the hallway in the house. That one feels like you're having a real, something really special right there. So I don't know why. It's just I have that mentality towards the Vector.
And similar to the Liquidator, it's fun size,
Exactly.
but
Not huge.
it's not terribly sleek. It's got a little bit of a booty to it. Did you
I never
enjoy the
had that
play
in mind.
factor?
I
Oh,
never had the
okay.
booty on it. To me, that was just
What?
like, no, that was like the guy that would eject it or whatever. Like I'd be flying around, and that's the first thing he'd do is, he'd get shot out, and then he'd eject the guy out, and
Oh.
then he'd have to parachute out. Or to me, it was just, or a drone. I remember using it as a drone as a kid, like just hold it around it, like now they have what's the wingman drones they call Project Loyal Wingman for the F-35, where you launch a drone once you're already in the air, and then that thing will take missiles for you or help lay down fire against you, all that good stuff. But yeah,
Hmm.
for me, I never had
What
that back part.
the F-35's drone? What is it armed with?
I have no idea. I've read up on
'Cause
it.
that's
I mean, it's or is it an F-18 they did it with? It's called the Loyal Wingman, and I honestly, since I'm not in the contracting side of that anymore, I don't keep as up as I used to. But the idea is that there's a drone that you would carry up with you, one or two of them, and I think what was it, Ace Combat 7. Paul, you're an Ace Combat guy, right?
Yep, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, the Hugin and Mugen that you have on it. Like I always have to mute out all the dialogue on it, but 'cause I'm
Mhm.
like, this is mindless anime. But it
Are
gives me
these
a headache. I'm
drones
like,
underslung? Are these on the wings?
yep, they sling them up just
Oh
like
my god.
they look like a JSOW underneath, the joint standoff weapon. That's what they're called. But
Wow. So this
yeah,
thing must be loaded for bear. It's got 2 drones. It's obviously got its internal stores. And oh, wow, okay. Can it take any additional fuel after that? And I mean,
God only
the
knows,
stealth
man.
characteristics must be shot to hell because you've got all this clutter on the outside of the plane.
Well, like I say, and I'm thinking it. I think it might be an F-18 that they did it with
All
the
right.
Super Hornet, but I know the idea is eventually they wanted to get it over to the 35 because that's what was mentioned to me when I first had heard about it. And so I was like, oh no, they're doing this. I was like, that's kind of cool.
Hmm.
But that's
Okay.
around the same time they're saying it was going to get a laser. So
Curious. I mean, the F-35.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
I've heard tell that the F-35 is not premised as a dogfighter in the slightest.
no,
So to
I
have
mean,
these like loyal wingman, uh, this is contrary to the philosophy of that plane. Anyways, I feel maybe we're getting a little bit too technical here.
probably, yeah.
Let's talk toys. Let's talk toys. Though, I mean, this is fascinating. I'm so amazed to have someone who can speak to these little ramblings of mine. So next up, after the Vector with no drone, is the X30, the Conquest.
All right, so the
Da-da-da.
X30 hits two things on me that I absolutely love. One, I already mentioned, is the forward folding wing. That just I think looks cool. There's something special about that idea. Like it's one of those ideas they had, and it kind of worked. They tried it with the X-29. The Russians did it with the Sukhoi, and they like, okay, this works. And when you're in transitional speeds, especially like really high speed stuff where you're trying to maneuver, you get a lot of extra at speed with that. But once you're slowed down, then all of a sudden your stall profile looks awful. Like your envelope is terrible. You drop out of the sky, but just looks cool. So the rule of cool always applies, and that's another fun size one. The X30 is a lot smaller than it looks.
Hmm.
Like when you're actually holding it, you're like, oh, okay, this thing's not huge. So it's like there with the Vector. It's just a little bit bigger than the Vector, I think. But I always loved it as a kid. And the second thing that's so awesome about it is the shark mouth. I'm a big lover of the P-40 Warhawk and
Mm.
the Flying Tigers, the American volunteer group out in Burma, painting the big shark mouth on everything. I mean, I've got one on the side of this helmet for that reason. So yeah, just a whole lot of love for that design. It just looks mean. It looks fast. It looks just ready to take on anything. And I never used those as drop tanks. Those were always bombs.
Oh, nice. Okay, nice to see that someone who should know better is still just like maxing out on the weapons. Amazing.
Rule of cool, right? Yeah.
Rule
Exactly.
of cool. But is there not an argument to be made that this looks far more villainous with all its sharp lines and angles?
I mean, a little villainous, yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's cool. And that's really what you want. Like, it's a military play toy. You've got to understand that the ability to blow stuff up and take lives from afar is probably a little villainous just in concept. So just
Okay.
lean into the pitch.
Then another design aspect that I'd like to pick your brain on is like the very obviously exposed like guns in the nose. I mean, they are looking like, I don't know what you'd call them, like 50 cals from the Second World War.
And once again, rule of cool. The original P40.
You
The
like
original
that?
P40s
Okay.
had guns right above where the eyes were painted on it. In fact, 1 second, let me go grab my P40.
He's got all the toys, ladies and gentlemen.
So on the original P40s, let's see if I can get this up on the camera well. So you see these little guys.
The guns were up top, right?
They had 2 guns up top, and then you had 4 on the wings. So this is the later models that had 6 on the wings and none at the top. But the originals did have them up here, and they were, since they're firing through the prop arc, you have to slow down your cyclic rate on those to make them not fire as fast. So they're always timed up to the prop, and you don't, de-engine yourself. But I always thought it was just such a cool
Clip your
concept, and
wings.
then for it to come back on a GI Joe jet, it's too cool. It's too cool not to have.
Could a P40 take on a Japanese Zero in a fair fight?
The entire concept of aerial combat is to make the fight as unfair as possible. So
Fair
the idea
enough.
being that P40s, I think the way that they were, I shouldn't say I think, the way I've always read that they were engaged, where they would try to take the Zeros on head on whenever possible because they had better frontal armor. The Zero was made out of balsa wood and fabric, while the P40 was all metal. So, and they were firing those 50 cals just would tear through them and set them on fire. So that's kind of the concept I always read. So, and if you could, you'd get them in a dive where you have a lot more, ass behind you because you're diving in on top of them. It's where the meat grinder, the wheel of death, boom and zoom, whatever you want to call it, started up in World War II. As the guys who flew the American Volunteer Group figuring out the best way to handle that super maneuverable Zero was to get into a fight where maneuvering didn't matter.
But I mean, unlike the United States, like Japan kind of started and stopped with the Zero. Did they have a later entry fighter at all?
They
I mean,
did.
the P40 was kind of the start of America's air fleet. I mean, they just got better from there until you got the Mustang, which was hectic, man. Like, wasn't that still being employed in service in Korea against jets?
It was not really against jets.
Wild.
They were using it mostly as a close air support system.
Gotcha.
But yeah, to get into that, the Japanese did have other planes come out. The Imperial Army had different planes than the Navy because the Zero is a naval aircraft. So you see different things come out of the Army because the Japanese, the Army and the Navy didn't like each other, and there's constantly competition between the two for who would go for that. Oh, Gaz, good. That's a good answer.
Gaz has just shouted out in the comments, P40, Wild Bill Kelso. Explain?
Oh, no, just, so Bill Kelso. All right. Oh, man, I didn't think I'd get on this subject today. So let's get on to this one correctly because I don't want to say anything wrong and get yelled at by other aviation nerds on the internet because I have had a lot of people yell at me. But yeah, what they're talking about is the American baseball player, Bill Kelso, who flew P40s in the war and then came back. And I think he played for was he Yankees? Gaz, am I right? Was he Yankees? Or was he Angels? Reds? No, well, I'm just going to look
Gaz
at this.
can keep us honest in the comments. And my condolences, Gaz, on Germany's early exit from what has been a World Cup of complete upsets. But I'm looking forward to an African team making it to the semifinals. Amazing. Morocco, our hopes are with you, my friend. Anyway, enough about
fun
football.
fact,
What
though, about
football
to get back onto the X30, though, one more thing, because we were talking about the P40. South Africa
Absolutely
employed the P40 excellent accord in northern
Southwest Africa. Nice.
You guys
What did we
actually
come
had
up
a couple
against? Was Namibia operating? Well, It wasn't Namibia
Oh no,
back
I'm
then.
talking. No, I'm talking about during World War II. Actually, South African
Yeah, yeah,
pilots in the P-40. You guys flew against the Germans and the Italians a lot. So the different Fiats and the Messerschmitts, BF-109s, all that good stuff.
109s.
And so yeah, in fact, I think the majority of now I can't remember names. That's what happens when you get old, kids. But yeah, the Loughberry formation where P-40s would get up around, and I'm gonna have a P-40 flying wingman to an A4 because why not? Apocrypha be damned. So a Loughberry, the plan being that no one can get behind you if your wingman's behind you. So they would create these giant wagon wheels of turning planes to try and make it so everybody's covering everybody else's butt. And the Brits thought that was the best idea in the world to protect P-40s who weren't as good at, weren't going to be as effective in the dogfight as an ME-109 or a BF-109, whatever you want to call it. So the Emils. And so, at first it was fairly effective against novice pilots. And then once the German aces started getting out to North Africa, they would just dive through the Loughberry from the top and, start killing people that way. So they were like, oh,
wow.
okay. So, yeah.
And he worked for so long. Oh, Gaz shoots back with. I was referring to John Belushi's character in the movie 1941. Lol.
God. How did I miss? I haven't seen that movie since like 1999, 98. Oh, it's a good movie. I gotta watch it. Thanks, Gaz.
Nice. On the to-do list. Okay. Let's fly through a few quick fires. We've got the Storm Eagle, the Ghost Striker. And let's. Okay, we'll just. Yeah, I mean, give us some opinions on the Storm Eagle.
Storm Eagle and the Ghost Striker, both because they're based off of real jets that were cool. I mean, the Storm Eagle F-23, Ghost Striker's the F-16. Both of them have the cool little handle. Like I said, I already have the story with my F-23 that I'd gotten. So I have that story of my brother with the Liquidator peeing in it, just because it's such a great moment in GI Joe history for me. And the X-16, the Viper looks cool in real life. It looks really cool as a toy, and it made perfect sense as a GI Joe vehicle.
It's the only instance where I wish it had a single seat as opposed to having a backseat guy.
Yeah,
because that cockpit is a little bit bulbous, and the F-16 didn't need a back. Well, I suppose any aircraft could do with someone to share the workload, but it looks cleaner, it looks neater with just one head poking up in that cockpit. I mean, it's true that it's just unparalleled vision in the Viper. You're sitting high up and you've got a single piece canopy with no frame. It's like being inside a giant fishbowl lens. Yeah. Fisheye lens, that one.
Now I've got friends who flew the Viper, and they've always said that was the coolest part, is the first time you get in it and you just realize you can see everything. There's nothing hindering your view. It's just your seat's the only thing blocking behind you, but your neck doesn't turn that far anyway. So
and talk to me a little bit about the old YF-23.
It's just the Black Widow, man. It was cool. And then the little missile up top, that's why it doesn't rate higher to me. Because I always thought that was
that's a weird choice, but I suppose they had to put them somewhere. I mean, essentially, the F-23 would be completely clean because it would be storing
internal weapons bays inside.
Yeah. I mean, that is a lovely silhouette.
And if you told me that, this is what, just pretend you're in the universe of GI Joe and they needed to replace the Sky Striker, that's kind of the silhouette you'd expect to see, Oh,
absolutely. I couldn't be happier that this was the Sky Striker of the Deke era. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
And I thankfully got to see one for the first time when I was in Cape Town recently. I mean, it was minty fresh. Hey, Steve, I mean, you've got yourself such a great specimen there with that vehicle.
I did pull it out of its box. It was a Chinese version, actually. So it had the European artwork and Chinese characters. Lovely.
I'm so jealous of you guys getting those. I never see those out here.
Well, they get snatched up by a voracious market. I think that's all it comes down to, man. GI Joe collectors out in Hong Kong are perhaps less starved, or they're just fewer in number, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, tilt rotor aircraft or tilt engine aircraft. We've got 2 of them in the next slots. We've got the Fang 2 and we've got the Cobra Hurricane VTOL.
Well, I like the Fang 2. I think the controversial thing here is I put the Fang 2 ahead of the Fang 1.
Yes. Explain.
I don't. Just the Fang 1 to me, just gyrocopters, knowing how they fly, and the fact that you're not creating thrust, you're creating lift and thrust, all that. I'm hesitant towards helicopters, just as a rule. Too many moving parts, and I'm not 1,000% sure on the way that they fly should be legal. But I like the Fang. It's just kind of neat. It looks like once the thing goes forward, and every time I look at the Fang 2, I'm just like, if you sold me that as an ultralight kit, oh yeah, I'd fly that. I'd fly that in a heartbeat. I would probably die.
Even though the props, the props are literally beating inches away from your face.
Oh yeah, still cool.
Yeah, as it should be.
Exactly. Like that's the thing, is you're out there with it, man. You gotta feel like there's a danger aspect. Something's got to get chicked. So you got to be dangerous sometimes.
And the missiles are also like firing off on either side of your head, which is precisely why I think like the Alley Viper or the Heat Viper with their very heavy helmets are probably the likely occupants.
Oh yeah, gotta have something with a blast shield. Just drop it down, hit the button, have your day.
The Hurricane VTOL, is this based on anything in existence or anything conceptual?
It looks like one of the bad guy jets from the first Top Gun game on NES. I think that's why I like it. Exactly. But it's just like when you go to pull up to that tanker, man, everything from that period of time, like I can just anything that reminds me of that really gets points. And it's just that VTOL, it was neat. I remember that's another one too. Is that a 2-seater or a single-seater?
2-seater.
Yeah. That's another one that I think the 2-seat should have been a 1-seat. I don't get the.
Yeah, it kind of makes the front end all canopy.
Yeah.
Like it's like the pilot his feet are literally shoved all the way till the nose cone. But just bringing up that rear profile, absolutely. I see that in Top Gun too, the Nintendo game.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, you just want to hit that, keep mashing the A button to shoot the machine guns. Go chase it down. Yeah, it's just I mean, there's just something about the look of it. It's got that classic, a kid's view of what a fighter jet should be.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like a kid drew that, and then that was refined.
More fins, more pointy bits, more missiles. It's got 11 presumably air-to-air missiles, though I suppose you could pretend they were air-to-ground if you were so inclined to make this a bomber or an attack craft. It's got the wingman buddy. It's even got what I'm going to call a spoiler. I mean,
oh yeah,
surely that makes zero aerodynamic sense.
I mean, in a way, it kind of does. You're building lift. It's just your center of lift will be picked up off the frame a little bit, so you'll probably have to keep that thing trimmed forward a lot. You'll be bunting the nose all the time.
Aren't you going to create some kind of vortex in that space?
I mean, yes, but
weird things to the airflow.
When you get the bigger thing,
just drifts everywhere. Sorry.
Exactly. I mean, it's just one of those things that if you're thinking about how it'll fly in real life, you'll get too way into it. I'm sure there's somebody who's rebuilt this thing on like simple planes and can tell you better than I can. But just to look at it and say, it'd probably have a little bit of a weird lift aspect, and you'd probably have to deal with the nose wanting to do stuff you don't want it to do. But at the same time, it looks too cool to complain about.
First rule of cool.
Exactly. That's the
what did we call?
Takeaway. Rule of cool.
Rule of cool.
Rule of cool.
I got a need for the rest. Guys, I just before we get to that next jet, I'm so excited. I missed Top Gun Maverick on cinema, but it's showing on IMAX. So this week I'm gonna make a plan to watch Top Gun on cinema.
They brought it back.
Yeah, dude, it's on IMAX. Like, oh my god!
So I didn't get to see it in IMAX, so I'm a little jealous.
Yeah. So how amazing is that? So Steve, maybe you should try and get Rob, and then you guys go and crack in an IMAX somewhere in Cape Town. Maybe there's one left or something. I don't know.
But, there are two left, I think. Great. Good idea. I saw it on the big screen, but not on the IMAX. And Yeah, that film is awesome. We are running a little long, so
Yeah.
how best to crack on?
Well, I
Seems
mean,
like we're
the
gonna get
X19. Yeah.
helicopter heavy now.
Yeah,
But yes, the
the X19's
X19.
great. As a kid, I didn't even understand how it worked because I had first seen it in the comics, and I honestly thought the cockpit was where the intakes are, just because that made more sense in my brain. But then when I saw the toy, I was like, oh, it's way at the front. That's cool. So I just thought that the X19 is a cool concept. GI Joe needed a stealth bomber. It makes sense in universe. It looks neat in real life. The guns that come out of the thing are awesome. It's like something out of an X-wing or something. Like, so that's cool. The helicopter backpacks, I have a very soft spot for Major Altitude and his, because that's a childhood memory of playing with my dad when I was a kid. I'd just
Oh,
gotten one of
nice.
those, and I'd gotten home from school one day, and I just have a crystal clear memory of him and I playing in our backyard for 2 hours one night with that thing. So that
I
one's always going to
can't
be a big
believe
one.
that's a reuse of Wildcard's head and helmet. It's like that helmet is meant to be on a guy operating a helicopter with an engine that's exposed and basically like right next to his head. Like that's what you want to wear, man.
Exactly. Don't want to get yourself
Hmm.
like banging your head on everything around. And then the Mamba, Cobra's only real helicopter. Because if you think about it, the
Yeah.
Fang is a gyrocopter, so it's not a real helicopter. And Cobra always needed a helicopter. Like, we never got that cool transport Cobra helicopter that was always there, like
Oh man.
their take on a Tomahawk. But
It
that's what
was
they
such a
had.
fully fleshed out design in the comic books, and yet
Never
it was
saw it.
really just the brainchild of the artists themselves and never designed to be a toy. Unbelievable. Getting back
Not a
to the battlecopters though, and I know we need to press forward, but like I suppose you just never really considered that these things should have a tail rotor.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, with you have the battlecopters. Oh, the little backpack ones. Yes, they should have a tail rotor or a second rotor on top that stabilizes it. Because in real life, that if you were flying one of those, you'd just be throwing up a lot. So
Well, but both the battlecopters and the wind up and go or pull back and go,
those
vehicle action packs,
backpacks.
like none
Yes,
of them have any kind of tail rotor.
but I
At
mean, I
least the
think
battlecopters have a tail boom.
exactly. And I think the cool thing about the battlecopters is it feels like this is something that could exist, and maybe they had a way to work it out where, I'm calling the FAA thing specifically on those battle packs, and it's kind of the same concept, but the difference being is on the battlecopters, one, I have the good memory of my dad with it, and two, I always pretended that back tail boom had something that would stabilize it, but those backpacks, those things are just designed to decapitate the guy flying it. So
True.
I always hated
I
that
think in the
design.
case of the Cobra one, the back peg can slide into a lower or higher position, so you can get a little bit closer to the blades if you're so inclined. Get a haircut.
There's a
What did you
reason
make of the
Destro's bald.
Mamba's molt pods? Did you like the idea of it deploying these little rocket planes,
I
rocket
honestly
pods?
think that's awesome. I think everything about the
Hmm.
Mamba in terms
Oh,
of
I
just how
love you,
it's designed
Buttface.
is just
You keep
great.
expecting you to shit on these things, and you're like, no, it's awesome.
Even the ones I don't like, I still like. Like the Condor, I have it in the I'm calling the FAA, but I only have it in the I'm calling the FAA because when the back part separates and you have that thing on the back, it scares the crap out of me. Just that entire design, awful. In that, my opinion.
Mm.
That said, high swooshability, and I love it. Like, if you could make that work in real life, someone should make it work in real life. But no, the Mamba, there's a reason it's in the good tier. I mean, the little pods launching off, that's a cool toy feature. And I mean, if I had been playing with one as a kid, that would have been how all the Cobra secret agents would have gotten deployed against GI Joe.
Oh,
Is they'd fly him in
yes.
a Mamba and shoot him behind him in the lines, and all of a sudden you've got an eel that jumps out the back and swims and puts a bomb on the bottom of the whale or something.
Outstanding. You've opened up a can with the Condor, though. How does it propel itself? I cannot see any engine exhausts, anything
Oh,
resembling
well,
conventional propulsion.
I always thought as a kid that ring on the back that's actually holds the two lasers, right? I
Hmm.
always thought that for some reason that would just be a giant fan. And then once it
Someone
dropped the
did
back
actually
end off, there'd be
mention
a
the
rocket.
Dyson fan,
Yeah.
Hmm.
that it kind of forces air through it at a high velocity.
I don't know if that would
Guys,
do anything aerodynamically, though.
when I see the Dyson fan, it makes me think of the Condor. So yeah, I'm totally there. Like such a random thing. Not random. It's actually really cool. But yeah, that just it just kind of came full circle in my brain. Pardon the obvious pun. When I saw that with the condor, it's like, this makes sense. And then you just put a gun inside your Dyson, and there you go. You got a condor. But hey, whatever. I'm just glad you said the condor's swooshable, man.
Exactly. Just whoo. Plus, it's a good boss fight in the GI Joe game.
Oh, heck yeah.
Totally. And the rollout bombs, like that's a very quick way to lose all your bombs. I mean, in very quick succession.
Cool
but it certainly beats having to individually like pull off. Like if you've ever wanted to do a bombing run with a rattler, you're like, what a ball ache. I gotta individually pull these bombs off the frame and the central. Nah, come on. The Condor at least takes all the grunt work out of it. You just roll that thing and make merry hell.
And then the other problem too is on the Condor, you see right there on the box where it says weapons do not shoot, but they totally do. When you those little dropping things, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, man.
That was a feature they underplayed, I think. That should have been a bigger part of it.
Let's just jump to, I suppose, I'm calling the FAA category, because we've sung the praises of really fantastic vehicles. So we're going to stick with the same category that the Condor and the vehicle action packs fit into, and keeping them company all the way at the bottom of your ranking are the Pogo, the Skyhawk, and Serpentor's Air Chariot. Shall we start with the Emperor in honor of his recent action figure release for the Classified series?
I'm fine with that. I think the Chariot just always seemed stupid to me, and I hated Serpentor as a kid. Like I always thought Cobra Commander was fun. He's running around, he's yelling at everybody, calling them names. I can appreciate that. As an older brother, that's how I treated my younger brother. So for all older brothers everywhere, Cobra Commander kind of spoke to us. Serpentor comes out and all of a sudden he's just this I command, and I always thought that was lame. Like there was just enough common sense in me as a kid to go like, where are they getting Andrew, or Alexander the Great's genetic material from? Did he have a stiff sock that they found somewhere? But but yeah, just that part of me, because I was getting to that age where I was starting to understand these things. So I was like, no, I don't like Serpentor very much. And then in the movie, he's just you get the whole Cobra Law thing, and that's when GI Joe started to try to go off the rail a little bit, and then it course corrected. So no, I never liked Serpentor. So just that Chariot on top of it just never did anything for me.
I'm delighted that someone was savvy enough when they were plotting and scripting G.I. Joe the movie that the liability of having a caped character standing on top of a fan, like to actually just pull the cape in there, that was genius.
And why is he holding a knife?
Someone looked at the toy, scrutinized it, and they were like, you know what, guys, this is really, really crummy design. Let's use it.
I just want to know why he's holding that knife. Like, if you've got a Chariot that has machine guns, why are you just gripping that knife and one-handing your Chariot there? Never did it for me.
If you're referring to the box art, they are showing off absolutely everything that the set comes with.
Yep.
They've even got the snake kind of peering over the side of the Air Chariot. It's the first time I've actually looked at that and scrutinized it. Yeah, it's all the accessories on display. Mm-hmm.
No, looking at the box art now, and for some reason this is only like dawning on me now, but I wonder if that back propeller thing, where all that, that little turbine, I wonder if that was something that was added later on in the production. Like they tested it out with kids, and maybe they got like pushback because kids were like playing with it wrong, so maybe they kind of put that there to kind of sell the fact that it can fly. Yeah, because a part of me kind of feels like that was added on. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's just that at the back there, it kind of feels like it's a grip. Like you're meant to be able to put your thumb there and your pointer finger like underneath that and fly it around. But now you got this turbine thingy, and it kind of gets in the way. It actually kind of makes this toy harder to play with. And when I say harder to play with,
if you took that turbine away, this thing would rock backwards.
So yeah,
especially with the weight of a figure on it.
Oh yeah.
So what you're worried about is kids were playing with it like if they were a jet ski.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think was happening. Yeah,
I agree with that. That makes sense now.
That's what it is. It's a jet ski, big gold snake jet ski with wings.
Serpentor likes going down to Daytona Beach.
Another
Yeah.
side of like design, especially like when you talk about boss design in video games, is that it's important that you design weakness into your design. Sometimes we call it necessary ugliness, or at least here locally when we design stuff, we call it necessary ugly, because sometimes if something is too cool and too slick, it's just it goes past people. But when there's like a hooking point, something that's like a little off, a little janky, a little odd, people seem to cling on to that, and that in itself enhances everything else sometimes. And I feel like maybe that's Serpentor's chariot, that there's a design in there, like that floor is kind of designed to not make it impossible, to make the boss fight bearable, so to speak.
The floor is called gold plastic, if you ask me, man.
Yeah. Oof.
Gigantic weakness of this toy. Though I've found my chariot to be quite sturdy. Maybe it's just because the guy I got it from took immaculate care of it. Like, I'm gonna name check. Like, he's a Singaporean seller, and this stuff must have just never seen the light of day. It was minty, minty, minty fresh. Not everyone is as lucky with their gold plastic, though. I'm sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about the pogo now.
Oh,
Whew.
boing.
All right.
Paul's
You know how I
favorite.
was you know how I was talking about Destro doing lines off the Baroness? This one's
Another drug
definitely that
adult.
same night, I think that was the same night, just blowing through. I'm going, oh yeah, we're gonna build a jumping pod. That's what we're gonna do. So yeah,
I
it made
assume this
sense
was later
devil does
on
fin.
that same night.
that night. Exactly.
Hmm.
That's the whole thing. Is everything about the pogo? It's let's build a rocket that goes straight up, and then it has to land as hard as possible, like the Apollo lander, and then it's gonna keep doing that. Now, I don't care what you're doing on the inside for that. You can give them, the world's best seat in the middle. Oh, and all the weapons are going to fire either straight down or straight up. So it never gets to be super useful. Like everything about the pogo makes no sense to me, which is And I like how it says umbilical plug in here. Like just give it that extra bit of discomfort when you're looking at it. Like, yeah, great. Now everything
How
about
the
this
hell
is,
do I hold this thing? It's just got
the only thing good about the
cabling.
pogo is this is the 69 right there after the ZOX. Great job, guys. I knew they snuck that.
Subtle.
I will
Does your
forever
answer
be.
change if this is a space vehicle?
Space vehicle's fine. If it's on the lunar surface, it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're using that thing on
I mean,
Earth,
I
you're
don't
an
know enough
idiot.
about the history of the toy line, but surely, like, the design came from that, and then they just were like, no, it's a bouncing pogo ball.
I still think this thing is very video game inspired, like Lunar Lander or something like that.
Oh yeah.
From the 80s inspired this vehicle's design. I also kind of and the problem is, one's memory is so like overwritten by the video game and seeing how functional this thing is in the video game, which is, take it or leave it. But it's difficult to like for me to see anything else that came before this other than like Lunar Lander. Like, so that's the only like thing that makes sense to me where this could come from. But as a space vehicle, I think, I kind of feel like this was probably designed as a space vehicle first off. I think the whole terrestrial concept was tacked on later. And I also just want to take this opportunity to just say thank you to Jim Godfrey for sending me a pogo way back when. I am eternally grateful because I absolutely love this vehicle. Every flaw that it
You
has,
would.
I am so in love with this thing. Like, this is like the Raptor, or I don't want to say Crocmaster, but it's the Raptor. It's the crystal ball of Cobra vehicles. It's just mad.
But that's the beauty of it. I honestly think that like even though it's in the lower tier, there's something about it that you have to be 7 for this to make sense on a good level.
Exactly.
And I think that's always been the beauty of GI Joe is there's that intrinsic nature to where you have to have a childlike wonder for it.
Yeah, I mean,
and
you totally do. And as Darren Cobb was just flashed on screen, sorry, I had a bit of lag, but he just said, "Hey, Fred made the pogo, not my man Destro." So of course, Destro's doing lines off the Baroness's butt, and Fred's cribbing off his homework, dude.
Fred's fawning over cutouts of the Baroness. One day she'll be mine. This is my ticket to ride.
White lines.
Right on, gentlemen.
Cocaine
I
bear.
think we're nearing the finish line. Let's talk a little bit about the Skyhawk. Why?
right.
Why, Buttface? Why?
Okay, so every other vehicle on this thing I can say nice things about. I hate the Skyhawk for a plethora of reasons, and the first one being, and some of them are truly personal. Like I had a Skyhawk as a kid. I had one in like I want to say 84, 85. So
Yeah.
very
Touch you in
young
funny
me.
places, Buttface.
No, but it broke immediately and just kind of broke
Oh
my heart.
no, that's the
It
worst.
like just immediately I think I had a skid snap off, and then the hinge on the cockpit broke. So that always bugged me, or the canopy. So that bugged me. And then my local, how was it? I forget which broadcast network affiliate that played GI Joe played the episode Cobra's Creatures constantly. I felt like every day when I got home from school, that was the episode that was on. And
yeah,
it
that would drive
has
you crazy.
it's Skyhawk heavy episode. They keep getting crashed because mosquitoes are flying into the intake. So I'm like, well, if a bunch of mosquitoes can take this thing down, then it's the crappiest one. Then in college, when I was playing or after college actually, when I was in flight school at Pensacola, the Battlefield 1942 mod came out for GI Joe, and the Skyhawk was in it, and it was the worst thing to fly. It died easy. It was super uncontrollable. And this is, I loved playing Desert Combat, the other mod that had helicopters that were known for being really hard to fly. I never thought they were that bad, but I hated the Skyhawk. And then on top of all of that, it's just where those engines are on the back of it doesn't look like it's balanced well for the thrust. So if in theory, if you weren't to take off, it would just shoot your ass up and then flip you over every time you went to take off, and then you die. So on all those things combined, and plus the fact that GI Joe at this time had the Shark, which was also a small flying vehicle, but could also go underwater. So it made it immediately better than the Skyhawk because it had an extra function as well. So all those things combined, we have Captain Suck It. It's
Suck Lord 5000.
I don't know. It's ungainly. You're absolutely right that like your mind, like it should be longer in order to balance out where those thrusters are. But it's just an extremely well-armed, small vehicle. Like I always marveled at how many guns were crammed into the front end of this thing. It's got those two cannons that have some swivel to them on the underside. And then like two machine gun nacelles on either side of the cockpit. That's a lot of bullets to cram into not a lot of fuselage.
Exactly. And just something about it always just felt like it was like we were talking about with Serpentor, he's got a jet ski. I guess it's the ones that look like jet skis I don't like a lot. So this one's just a super fancy jet ski.
The fragility issues just are never-ending laundry list. Like I find after putting the engines in for the first time, a lot of them stress at the clip point to the point where like they then become very limp, like they
Floppy.
can't swivel and hold their position.
They become flopsy wopsy.
The 25th anniversary
I know you want to
is
say
good.
it, Steve.
No, of course. You know me too well. The 25th anniversary is good. It glassed in the cockpit, gives it a removable engine panel. It beefed up the skids, but it added a third engine, which points like horizontally back from the cockpit. And that actually interferes with the other two engines pointing straight down. Which, come on, man. You need them to point straight down. This is a vertical takeoff and landing craft. Anyway, minor gripe, but yeah, the glass down canopy was terrific on the new version.
Random question. Would for a VTOL to go from vertical flight to, let's say, horizontal flight, pardon the lack of technical terms, would the thrust always need to be engaged, or would there be a point where the thrust is disengaged for the VTOL to change its positioning for the thrusters?
You are asking the right guy because you flew. What did you fly? But
I did fly the Harrier for a little bit before I got hurt. I don't have a lot of hours in it, but I have some. But yeah, with the Harrier, like any type of VTOL thing, what you'd want to do, because you'll have a transition, even helicopters, you see when a helicopter takes off, they come up and then they tip and then they go. So
yeah,
you're going to need that thrust the whole time. I mean, in theory, if you went up 50,000 feet, then cut your engines and then decided to go forward, you have that distance to fall, or you could get your nose down a little bit to get going. So yeah, you have to have a transitionary period from everything I've experienced, at least. So I'm talking to a friend of mine that's currently in the F-35B, that's capable of VTOL, or that has flown it. He was telling me that it's essentially the same thing. You have the same transitionary period. It's just a lot more stable, he's felt like, in the F-35 than it was in the Harrier. But yeah, you definitely
Right.
don't lose thrust in that period, or you're probably going to die. I mean, the original Harriers lost a lot of pilots that way,
Oh,
because they would
shit.
have engine
Okay.
failures on transition, and then they'd immediately just lawn dart.
Oh, crazy. Okay, because like the reason I ask that is because on the Skyhawk, you've got the at the back. I mean, if you have to play it going the thrust the whole time, essentially it's going to eventually destroy the rear part of the plane or of the aircraft. You've got that whole portion then that holds the foils, at the back, or whatever they're called. My brain is dead today from
Stabilizer. We'll just call it stabilizer.
Stabilizer state. It just looks like it's going to fry that section of the aircraft, and that always kind of bugs me a little bit on the Skyhawk's design.
Maybe it's just made with super cool metal, like adamantium, or what's it called? Vibranium.
Gundanium.
There you go.
Vibranium, yeah.
Gundanium, there's another one, Mithril.
Yeah.
That way we get all the fictional metals.
But before, and also just before we transition to our next jet, for me, my issue with the Skyhawk was, it's got a bit of a swooshy feel, but you start getting very irritated with it when the stabilizers fall off. And they fall off often. And then what adds to that is, if you're a little OCD or you just wanted to not do that, then you're debating with yourself whether you should glue them on or not, because that's the other side of it.
Oh yeah, I glued mine when I was
I can't bring myself to glue mine, but mine keep falling off and it drives me freaking crazy. So yeah. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on this bad boy from a toy perspective. What's next, Steve? I think I saw a glimmer of something.
We're going to cap it off with any notable mentions, and the one that I want to slot in as my notable mention pick kind of finds its way into the decent tier, and it is the Skystorm X-Wing helicopter. Now, we were talking a bit about jets, and we were talking a bit about transition periods. This is a rotary craft. This is a helicopter that stops its rotor mid-flight and engages a jet engine. Like, is that batshit, or is that real? Like, enlighten
They
me.
tried it in the 70s. If I remember correctly, they did try something that flew this way in the 70s, and it kind of worked. So, if I remember, this could be me misremembering something from 2 lifetimes ago. But the reality is it could function, especially with that jet there. So really what it would be, because I don't, just looking at it like right now, purely from someone with a bachelor's degree in aerodynamics, or not, but aeronautical science and aerodynamicist from 20-something years ago. When I look at this, I don't see any way for that rotational energy when the rotor is spinning to get transferred over. So, we were complaining about how there's no rear rotor on the battlecopters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing like that on the Skystorm. So it would technically be a gyrocopter at that point. So we're assuming, just for the sake of argument here. So the idea being that there's a big jet behind it on that back section. So you have your front section and your back. So let's say this is our X-wing, and then you've got your big rotor up top. And then at the back, you've got a big jet engine. So that'll, be pushing it forward. And so the idea is now that rotating rotor up top is just there to provide lift. So as it's providing that lift, transitionary would be a weird one for it. I don't know how you'd be able to land that thing. But
Transition
I know
back to pure helicopter mode, I guess.
Yeah, so you're just kind of, no, actually it makes sense, because now we're thinking about this, now that I'm kind of engaging my brain on it. It's called auto rotation, and helicopters do it all the time in emergency situations. So maybe it's a controlled auto rotation system when it goes to land it. But I don't think it'd be a VTOL system.
But my understanding is that the rotors actually stop mid-flight and just become a wing.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah. In a kind of an X formation. They create this kind of high wing airfoil.
Huh. Well, that's news to me. As a kid, I always thought it just always moved. It's just it changed the distance on it because it looked neat.
I didn't like watching Airwolf for that reason. I was like, how can a helicopter have its helicopter blades still spinning and it's got these jet engines pumping away at the back? Like
Oh no,
it's
that makes
gonna do
perfect sense. That
really?
the blade still spinning would provide lift. So if you look at how a gyrocopter works, as those
Yeah,
blades are moving,
but
that's still going to
nowhere
provide
near
lift.
the kind of velocities that Airwolf is going.
Well, Airwolf, yeah, but
It's getting into
if you
like
look at real,
Mach numbers.
let me see. Let's see if I can pull some up. So if you look at the original gyrocopters from around
The 1930s.
the 1930s, or even the
Eesh.
modern ones now that I'm looking at, like if we're looking at like a Mad Max kind of thing, I don't know how to present on here, but
Share
they do make them.
screen, I think, is the
Share
way.
screen.
Or it's under present. Now they call it.
Oh, okay.
It's a little
Ooh, yes, that's
box
right.
with a plus.
Got it. All right, share screen. So go to screen two.
I just something that keeps grabbing my attention every time is that remove before flight tag that you got on your set of
Oh,
drawers in the
my
background.
dress. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
That's also being anchored by a poker set. But if we look right here, and I'll share it right there. So you guys see that? The right here. There we are. Okay. So on a
A modern
gyrocopter,
gyrocopter.
this doesn't have much connected to it. This is just moving with the airflow around it to create, as the centrifugal force moves the rotor itself, it's helping create lift. All the thrust is coming from this guy on the back. So
Mhm.
and
So the helicopter blade is not powered.
exactly.
Uh-oh.
This guy.
Cobra Commander's designing stuff again.
So right here though, with this really cool concept, you can kind of see like where he's using that little handle he's got, where he's going to be able to manipulate those rotor blades to change the way the lift is working and the function is. And then you've got this right here where we're working with the it kind of goes through the whole process. So as that blade is moving, the airflow is being used to create the lift. So the thrust is then pushing forward. So the idea is, with it as a pure gyrocopter, you don't need the wing because the rotor is being the wing, and the manipulations made to that rotor then provide the manipulations like an aileron or an elevator would in a normal wing.
Brilliant. Gaz in the comments just gave us some good reference for anyone who's not following along with the visuals. Little Nelly from You Only Live Twice. That is a perfect example of a
Yep.
very highly armed gyrocopter. I think it had aerial mines that are deployed with little parachutes. How cute. Amazing.
News.
But okay, so I mean, Darren makes a good point that Switchblade from Mask is probably a good example of transitioning from jet to helicopter and back again. But that is a transition. It's not really a transition. It's more of a transformation, because there's a period where the helicopter blades have dipped into the fuselage and then the jet engines switch on. So just like you were mentioning earlier, there'll be a significant drop in altitude.
Yeah.
While it's just a rock with no propulsion.
Essentially, with the Switchblade, because now I'm looking at that because I've never actually seen the Switchblade before. This is my first time. I am a total dilettante, but when it comes to Mask. But yeah, with that, I mean, I guess it could work too if you had enough thrust coming from behind and you were getting up there. Then you're kind of a gyrocopter for a half second until you become an actual helicopter, and then as you switch from helicopter over to jet, essentially you just got to get a little bit of forward momentum. If those jets have a really nice high amount of thrust to them and it's immediate on demand, like you hit that throttle forward and then they're immediately pushing as hard as they can, then you probably wouldn't have that bad of a loss. But I mean,
Look, we
once
are
again, we're
talking about a
sci-fi.
show that had
Yeah.
a Camaro basically open its, or was it an IROC? I don't know, whatever it was. Open its
DeLorean?
gull
I
wing
think that was the one with the
doors.
DeLorean that would pop open. Yeah.
Yeah, and become an aircraft. So some salt, much necessary. All right, Paul, do you have one that you want to pick out of the tier?
Ooh, this is the very same tier that has the ooh, yeah. Actually, I was looking at it earlier and I'm wondering, like, the I can't believe I forgot its name. The Sea Ray.
Hmm.
I mean, because the Cobra Claw makes perfect sense to me. I feel like that could actually be super plausible. But the Sea Ray, I'm curious. Like, yeah, like let's get
Incidentally,
into
the Sea
that.
Ray is on the decent tier, while the Shark is on the meh
On the
tier.
indecent.
So, Cobra advantage.
The reason I like the Sea Ray, or yeah, that's what it's called, right? I got that one.
Yeah.
The reason I like that one better than the Shark is mostly because the way I saw you guys defend it in one of your videos, where it had the guy in the glider in the
What?
back and
GI
coming off and all that.
Joburg?
I thought it was cool. I just thought that sold me on it. I never played with one as a kid. I never had one. It's the same reason the Claw is as high as it is too. Is I thought you guys using it as a drone. In that one episode you did, the play motion with Zartan, where you
Oh,
had
yeah.
the claw set up as a drone. I thought that was the coolest thing. So those immediately gained a tier just for that. But yeah, that's the
Well,
whole
it's got
reason
that
why I use it.
central bomb. It's got to be a drone, man. There are instances where it cannot have an occupant. So I would argue that its primary function is as a drone. And then once it's dropped all its ordnance, it becomes an escape vehicle, as
And
we
that's
used
like the
it in that.
perfect Cobra vehicle if you
Mm.
think about it. That's the perfect way for Cobra to go about. So no, the Sea Ray and the Claw are actually both little mini love letters to what you guys do. So I love how you
Oh,
guys
you
have used them in play
beauty.
motion. So that's why I like them.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Well, on the way out then, Buttface, is there anything that you'd like to pass over that we haven't chatted about? I mean, just to let the listeners in on it, like there's so much. There's the Dragonfly, the Locust, the Fang One, the Mud Fighter, the Firebat, the Stellar Stiletto, the Crusader, the Destro's Dominator, which is the tank that transforms into a helicopter. Talk about a transition, and albeit a weird one. The Flight Pod, Zanzibar's Air Skiff, the Falcon and Viper gliders, the GI Joe Razor Blade, a zipline helicopter. Yuck. The Cobra Swampfire, Dreadnought Swampfire, Destro's Despoiler, the Cobra Jetpack, the AGP, the Locust. I've said that already, didn't I? And then the honorable mentions in the bottom category, not really an aircraft, but deserves a mention. It's the Defiant Launch Complex and
Vindicator.
not the Vector, the Vindicator. Thank you. Whew, out of all of that.
You know, I think I'm looking at it now, and the one I wish I'd put up a little higher now that I'm just staring at it is I wish I'd put the Firebat a little higher up.
Hmm.
Just it's got so much, it feels like a kamikaze jet, but I like the way it looks next to the Mud Fighter. I think just seeing those two next to each other, where you have GI Joe's answer to it as a close air support vehicle that's, it's low tech, but it's designed to do a very specific job. And then the Cobra answer is this: oh yeah, we're gonna make it super fast. We're gonna make it
Suicide
launch out of
Mobile.
it. It's a suicide mobile. So I don't know. I think it speaks to the design ethos of both sides really well. Now when I'm just looking at them next to each other, it's just really kind of speaking to me.
Yeah, and this is something that we stumbled upon with Dustin Cordish's contribution to the International Backyard. That if you were to misassemble your Mud Fighter and put the wing tips facing, well, I think they're slightly forward swept on the proper design. But if you had them swapped and they kind of sweep backwards, then yeah, the silhouette becomes very Firebat like. Very like far rearward wing surface that is completely swept and has no kind of forward pointing wingtips.
Something
Yeah,
about
man.
that Mud Fighter, it just feels like it'd be so durable. Like this thing could get shot up to hell and back and you'd be able to get it home. But the Firebat looks like, oh, if you put the wrong, if you got gas from a pump that was just pushing a little lower on the octane, you'd probably destroy it. So it's a neat, I don't know, just a
An exotic sports car
juxtaposition.
versus a pickup truck.
Exactly. Like, and that's
Mhm.
where both mentalities come from with GI Joe and Cobra. So I like that. I like the idea of it.
Now, Firebats land on their tails, right? Is that how you envision them? They kind of pitch up and then just drop. You reduce the thrust until you're parked.
Nah, you just eject. Those are single-use fighters.
Yeah, you
just
point the nose at the nearest target and hit the eject. Okay,
and
good,
hope for the best.
outstanding. Oh, lovely, lovely stuff. Does anyone in the Berg Force in the chats have any questions for Buttface while we've got him? Paul, do you have any questions, my friend? I've been very, very active on the mic as usual.
Dude,
Not just
I'm
because your
actually
voice is tired.
no man. I'm so happy because a lot of what you've asked is very similar to what I would have asked anyway. So
I'm running
it
down a
is
hill,
good for
man.
me. Yeah, no, it's been highly like educational, and also like super surprising because I mean, you being an actual pilot, you know, we were expecting you to go for like more realistic stuff. I mean, at least that's what one would perceive. But you know, you really get into it, and it's great because I love that because you know you get so many arguments with guys online and like this is not realistic, and then you got the actual guy who actually flies jets or whatever going. It doesn't matter.
It's
You
just
know?
cool. It's all it's got to be.
Yeah.
You throw enough thrust behind anything, it'll fly. Who cares? So
Modern
Yeah,
day
cool.
is that GI Joe needed an Osprey. Buttface, how would you GI Joeify the Osprey, the tilt rotor? I mean,
well,
apart from the Cobra equivalent, which is I suppose
oh,
the Fang 2,
you
but a
know,
transport, well, what would you call
I
it? A
think if I was
VTOL
going
craft.
GI Joe, especially that because I think that they don't need the Osprey because they have the Tomahawk, which kind of fills the same role. Now, would it be as fast? Probably not. So if I were to try and GI Joeify an Osprey, I think the Dragon Hawk, is that what it's called, that they used in
Oh
the GI
yeah,
Joe Revenge of Cobra or whatever it was? I thought
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
really cool, and it's in the mobile game. I've played it on the mobile game. That one's useful to have. So once again, that's the rule of cool. That one fits it perfectly. I think the jets on it are neat. It feels like it's kind of that. It's like a Hind gunship, but if it turned into an Osprey or something. So that would be my answers. They already did, and that's what it would be.
so we're talking about the GI Joe one, not the Black Dragon VTOL
That's the one
from
I'm talking
Cobra.
about. It's the Black Dragon
Oh,
VTOL. Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Because the one
That's
I'm thinking about was the movie line, which looked like
that
a
green thing.
reject Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles vehicle.
Well, now I got to look that
Uh,
up. 1 second.
you do indeed. Okay. Now the Black Dragon, it's a very like slender, spindly craft, the Black Dragon VTOL.
Yeah, but it's so
And it was
pretty. It's a cool
it is
design.
pretty. Yeah.
Mm.
But that would definitely tend more towards Cobra as far as I can tell.
As a toy, I wish it was just a teensy bit bigger, just a little bit,
Oh, of
just so
course.
that the pilot didn't feel like he was completely, you know, being crushed in the cockpit. But it's
Bodycon.
great with vintage figures, so.
Oh
Gaz
man,
wants to know your opinion on the Locust. But yeah, firstly address the G.I. Joe.
so it's the
The Black
Howler.
Dragon in the room.
The Howler,
Oh,
yes.
the Howler. I know. I'm looking at this is my first time actually looking at it. It looks pretty neat. It feels like more like something out of Halo than GI Joe, but I guess that's kind of the time period. So we're old now, so this is the new future. So no, I think that'd probably be the way to go. Just give it some props instead of some jets, and yeah, that'd be about it.
Right
I
on.
think they already did it right. I think they did a lot better job on everything that wasn't the his tank. They did a really good job at in these movies, I thought, for vehicles, other than acting and casting and all that, because they're awful. But
Accelerated suits. What?
you know what though? I'm gonna stick up for it though. The very first half or first 15 minutes of the second GI Joe movie they did, the live action one with
Mhm.
Channing Tatum and The
And
Rock,
Rock.
that was
Mhm.
great. A buddy comedy with the two of them and GI Joe would have been perfect. That should have been
I
the whole
agree.
movie. Should have been the whole
Yeah.
movie.
I think it would have made it a lot more fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, would have. Yeah.
All right. Our request from the Berg Force goes along the lines of your opinion on the Locust. This is the
The
little jelly bean of death from 1990.
it's the least amount of effort they could have put into making a toy helicopter, and
Boo
still
to
have it.
that, I say.
I
Ooh,
know.
boo
That's
to
just
that
how I
I
felt
say
about
as
it.
well.
I
It's got
don't
play
know. Just something
features.
about it. It's got play features, but just something about it. I don't know. To me, there's the cynical adult in me that just does not like that one. And I do like that it's a JT 888, instead of the hooded Cobra Commander. But that's how I see it. Yeah, it's kind of got that little thing on the back or on the front where you compare like the serial numbers and whatnot. So I always think of hoodie whenever I see a his tank for that reason.
Eight.
So JT,
Oh,
Geo Team, I guess. But
triple
no, I don't know.
eight.
Something about it just it seems it's not minimalist to me, because like there's minimalist where you do as little as you can, but it's still neat. Like I think the Fang is minimalist, where it has that design language that speaks out to it, and it still looks neat and it serves a purpose. The Locust, on the other hand, it's just something about it feels like the least amount of effort went into it.
I would counter by saying the Locust, like the Fang, to me looks like a helicopter that got the scaling wrong. Like if it was sized up, it would proportionately be perfectly right for a smaller scale. Whereas the Locust looks like an accurately scaled mini helicopter. It's got no tail, it's got no nose. It's literally a bubble with an engine slapped behind it and a fan behind that to stop the kind of counter rotation. Like this is, at least it's got all the design hallmarks that would make a helicopter, but then squished into a very compact package, which make it a mini helicopter. It's for, I don't know, like that sequence in Mission Impossible where flying a helicopter in a train tunnel. Like it's for those impossible GI Joe scenarios where you absolutely need to get a helicopter into a tight space.
See, it feels more like GI Joe got a budget cut to me. I don't know. It's just that's where I'm at with it. It's, to me, it's just I think I encountered this one too late in life, at that weird period where you're in your teens and you're to your mid to late 20s, where you're a little more cynical without having earned it, and then you get a little older and wish you weren't as cynical. That's where I'm at now. Is I'm older and I wish I wasn't so cynical. So with things I'm introduced now, I give the benefit of the doubt. I was introduced to this at the period where I wasn't giving that. So I guess that's just kind of my imprint on this one, is that it's just not what I would want it to be.
Here. Oh well, Paul and I love it, so I guess at least gets
Don't let
two
my
votes.
dislike for something shade yours, because honestly, any joy you can find in life is pretty much worth grabbing onto, I'd say.
Oh, agreed, fully, man. And thank you for that, because I
It's got
sometimes
bombs,
feel like
it's got missiles, it's got big guns that swivel, it can take two guys on the skids, and it's got a fully enclosed canopy. I like the idea of a glass cockpit that is protecting you from the elements, like those poor Fang pilots, and Fang 2 pilots for that matter. Like, this thing takes at least pilot survivability seriously. You got something between you and the beating rotor blades over your head.
So what do you think the Cobra equivalent of the Locust is? Because to me, it feels like that would be the trouble bubble.
Ah, good
All
point.
right. Okay.
AGP? It's a
I
little
always
bit more
felt it was the
substantial.
Fang 2 for me. Yeah. Yeah, for me it was the Fang 2 would be the Cobra counter to the Locust.
Okay,
Yeah.
actually, Martin Day just said something in the comments. The Locust or the Skyhawk would be perfect for the battle platform, and I do have to agree with that. That is a very good point he's making.
My Locust is currently parked on my TTBP. So
I had one of those as a kid, and I had a Tomahawk on it, and that thing did not like staying on it.
Jeez.
My word, dude.
You managed to get a whole Tomahawk on the TTBP pad?
We would balance it. My brother and I got really good at just how you'd get it, because we wanted to, I mean, like every kid, we wanted a flag, but my dad would always point out that we had a kitchen table. So
good point.
And not like it was going to go in our room. It's like that thing was huge. So yeah, like so many kids that grew up in the 80s, that was the thing, is it was the TTP, or the tactical battle, the TBP, tactical battle platform.
We know what you're talking about. The battle platform.
The battle platform was that was our big Joe base. So we used that one for everything. So yeah, that's where the Tomahawk lived.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Cool.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, have you got
I
it,
wish
it, right?
I need to see pictures of this. But like I can just, in my mind's eye, or like in my mind's ear, I can hear the creak of the plastic of those little like red supports for the TTBP. Yeah.
You have to get it balanced just right too, or else it goes off the side.
And I mean, a Tomahawk's weight effectively doubles when you've got it loaded up with figures. So, oh man, gonna get some.
I'm pretty sure mine was glued. That thing was
Tomahawk down.
Glued and put some wire frame in there to shore it up.
My dad became quite the good GI Joe mechanic by the time we were 8 or 9
Everybody
years old,
needs one.
Yep.
Man. I kind of wish I could send my broken toys away to Mauler Joe. He's
Yeah.
amazing with coming up with ingenuitive fixes, but I'm like, I don't have the skill, I don't have the tools. Man, oh man, why can't you just live in the same village as me?
Yeah,
Anyways,
but he has been
Buttface.
our Joe doctor. It's been great.
He has, or at least a correspondence doctor.
Yes.
That's the way medicine's going. Buttface, anything you'd like to mention on the way out, man? Thank you so much for your time. We are running quite long, so
Oh,
let's
I'm
not
sorry
keep you
about
any
that.
longer, brother.
Nah,
No,
it's all
no.
right.
I honestly, I could talk to you for 3 hours, but
Yeah.
that
No,
would be
guys, I
cool.
just thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Hopefully, I wasn't too boring, and I cannot believe I'm still mad I missed the Bill Kelso thing because I thought Bill Kelso was a completely different P-40 pilot that didn't even have the last name Kelso. Because I'm completely wrong. I had to Google that one, so I feel like an idiot for missing such an obvious joke by Gaz. I feel like a complete moron.
I feel educated either way because
Ah.
I'm completely in the dark, man. We are
1941
silence
is a
for far too
wonderful
long.
movie.
You apologize, but watch in January in on Jeopardy, that question's gonna pop up.
Someone's gonna catch it now
And-
because
Exactly.
There we go.
And
Here's
somebody's
hope.
gonna be so happy that they listen to this podcast.
There you
Like,
go.
"Oh,
Listen
I'm
to
so
GI
glad
Joburg.
because-" Yeah.
Expand your mind. All right. Well, we're punching out on episode 279. GI Joe Jets
With Buttface 69.
Yeah, man.
All right, gentlemen, let's lock
I
it.
think that's what I want to title the episode. I want to title it 279 with Buttface 69.
There we go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We really do earn that explicit rating we get on iTunes. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, dude, it was there long before you graced us with your butt and your face. So let's fuck off. Love you long time. And also, awesome. Thank you to the Berg Force who joined us. Thank you to the Berg Force for their assistance every month, keeping the lights burning down
Thank
here.
you, guys.
Rob was left without power, which is why he was absent on this this fine night. But
Yep.
I'm sure he sends his regards if he could.
Tell him I love him.
I know. We all love Rob.
Rob's
miss
just
him
so,
when
We really
he's
do.
a delight. Every time you get something
Mhm.
with Rob.
Oh, man.
Well, thank you,
Well,
gentlemen.
then I'm sorry. Do you feel cheated? Oh,
No, just let him know I love him. Then we'll be there.
We'll give you guys a private session, maybe in episode
Ooh.
280. Yeah, he's got I think I'm AWOL on 280, going up the coast with the family, and
Oh.
I don't think there will be much internet to be had.
Ooh. Are
Boo!
you saying it's
But
the Paul and Rob show? Dun dun
it
dun.
most likely will be. So everyone boycott. No, I mean everyone support and listen and
That's so
enjoy.
mean.
Paul, you know I love you. All right, boys.
know
With
you
all this
do.
love floating around, it's time to say bye.
Joseph,
Yo,
Joseph.
Berg,
Joe.
Berg.
He's gone. It's just us.
Come on. Just us.
Bye.
Bye.